I never expected my own child to turn on me at the moment I needed her most. I never imagined the man she married would speak to me, like I was a burden instead of the woman who raised the daughter he now claims to love. But life has a funny way of revealing who people truly are, sometimes in the ugliest ways. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 59 years old. Until last year, I believed in loyalty. I believed in family. I believed that after losing my husband, the one man who ever protected me, my daughter Tiana would be my safe place. I was wrong. Asterisk, I share new life stories here every day, and I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now let's jump back into my story. I sure you love it. If you keep listening till the end, when my husband Anthony passed from congestive heart failure, the world shifted out from under me. The silence in our house was unbearable. Every hallway echoed with memories I wasn't ready to face. After months of sleepless nights and sinking despair, I sold the home we built over 30 years of marriage, Tiana and her husband. Darius Holt told me I could stay with them temporarily at least. That's what Tiana said. Darius barely muttered anything beyond a forced, "Sure, that's fine," while scrolling on his phone. I should have noticed then their apartment wasn't large, 2 bedrooms in a modest complex on the east side of Houston. They gave me the smaller room. I didn't complain. I folded myself small, tried hard not to take up space, tried to be helpful. I cooked dinner. I swept the floors. I did laundry. I wanted to feel needed. I wanted to feel like I still had a place in this world. But Darius, he acted like my presence was a stain on his life. At first it was small things. Little sighs. Rolling eyes. Snatching the remote out of my hand without a word. But then the comments began. One night he passed me in the hallway and muttered, "Some folks just don't know when to leave." Tiana insisted he was stressed from work, that I was imagining things, that he didn't mean anything by it. But I could feel the truth. The man resented me being there. Everything came crashing down the night I cooked a pot of gumbo, Darius's favorite dish, or so Tiana had told me. I stood at the stove for hours, tasting, adjusting, making it just like Anthony used to love. We sat at the table. No TV, no phones, just quiet. Then Darius cleared his throat. "Well, guess it's time we talk about how long this arrangement is supposed to go on." I froze. "What arrangement?" I asked. He laughed under his breath. "This freeloading situation." Tiana stared at her plate, silent. I looked to her for help, for a word, for defense. Nothing came. "You're not working," Darius continued. "You're not contributing. We're trying to build our life here, and you're in the way. Maybe it's time you find somewhere more appropriate." Appropriate. Like I was furniture they were tired of looking at. My voice barely worked. "Tiana?" But she wouldn't even meet my eyes. "Maybe he's right, Mama. Maybe it's best for all of us." I didn't cry. Not then. Not in front of them. I went to my room, packed my 2 suitcases, everything I own now, and walked out of their door without a sound. Neither of them stopped me. Neither asked where I would go. I sat outside on the curb for almost an hour with the Texas night pressing down on me like a weight. My phone was dead. My heart was empty. I felt erased, like a woman whose story no longer mattered. But I didn't know then that life was about to show me a truth so shocking, so life-changing, that it would reshape everything. The past wasn't done with me. And when it resurfaced, it carried the kind of power that could rebuild a broken woman, or bring the ones who betrayed her to their knees. Asterisk, the motel I checked into that night smelled like cigarette smoke and broken promises. The wallpaper was peeling, the sheets thin, the air conditioner rattling like it was coughing up its last breath. But it was the only place that would take a woman with 2 suitcases, a grieving heart, and a dwindling bank account. I spent the first night staring at the ceiling, not sleeping, not crying, just existing. The silence felt different here. Not peaceful, not healing, just empty. The next morning, I texted Tiana. "I understand. I love you." She didn't respond. Days blurred into each other. Cheap dinners from vending machines, long walks because I had nowhere else to go, applications for jobs that wouldn't call me back. At 59, grief aged me another 20 years, and employers saw that. I tried everything: front desk, grocery stocker, daycare assistant. But my body was slower now, my heart heavier, my hands stiff. And every rejection felt like another confirmation that I didn't belong anywhere. Maybe Darius was right. Maybe I was a burden. Maybe I had outlived my usefulness. One evening, unable to sleep, I reached for the old box of family keepsakes I'd brought from the house, the last pieces of my old life. Inside were photos, letters, and at the very bottom, a small leather-bound book I barely remembered owning. My mother's diary. The leather was cracked, the pages yellowed, her handwriting unmistakably hers, neat, looped, patient. I didn't expect much. My mother wasn't one to share secrets. But as I flipped through the pages, one date caught my eye: June 1907. To dot the words felt like a punch to the chest. He came again today. He says he cares for me but has a family, a business, a name to protect. Evelyn must never know the truth of who her father is. The world would tear her apart. But he promised me she would be taken care of one day. Quietly, I blinked, breath hitching in my throat. I read the entry again. And again, my mother had written about an affair. A man with influence. A man who couldn't publicly claim us. And she never told me. My hands shook as I turned the pages. More entries revealed small details. Initials H.J.S. Hotel meetings. Envelopes of money slipped discreetly into her hands. And then one sentence that nearly made my heart stop beating: his lawyer. Mr. Langston will hold the documents if anything ever happens to him. A trust. A letter. Something for Evelyn's future. A trust. A letter. A man whose name I had never heard, or so I thought. It took me 2 full days on the motel's shared computer to find him. Thomas Langston, retired estate lawyer, now living in Dallas. With trembling hands, I wrote him a letter. A real Panon paper letter. I told him who I was, who my mother was. I asked if the name H.J.'s meant anything to him. 2 weeks later, he called. His voice trembled when I mentioned my mother's name. "I always wondered if you'd reach out," he said. "There's something you need to see." I took a bus to Dallas with one suitcase and a heart full of fear and hope. Mr. Langston greeted me with kind eyes and a worn leather briefcase. Inside it was a single sealed envelope, yellowed with age. My name written in heavy ink. To my daughter. Evelyn Marie. My daughter. I opened the letter slowly, the paper fragile beneath my fingertips. With every line I read, my breath grew fainter. He confessed everything. The affair, the regret, the love he could never publicly show, and the promise he made my mother: a quiet inheritance set aside solely for me. Documents were enclosed. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property titles. My world tilted. The total value, even modest by wealthy standards, was life-changing for a woman who had been sleeping in a motel eating stale vending machine crackers. I wasn't just a burden. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't worthless. I had power. Real power. Power they didn't know I had. And as I rode the bus back to Houston, one thought kept echoing through my mind. They threw me out like I was nothing. But they have no idea who I really am now. And soon they will. I didn't go back to Houston right away. I stayed in Dallas for 3 more days, walking through quiet streets with a secret burning in my chest like a small, steady fire. For the first time since Anthony died, I felt something other than grief. I felt direction, purpose, a spine I thought I had lost when I finally returned. I didn't return to the motel. I booked a short-term rental downtown, a neat little studio with clean walls, working heat and floors that didn't creak like old bones, a place that didn't smell like despair, a place I could breathe. With the inheritance settled and the accounts officially transferred, I made a choice. I wasn't going to be the fragile woman they left on the curb. I started dressing differently, simple but sharp. Clean lines, dark colors. Hair combed back or pressed neatly. Not expensive pieces, but ones that made me feel like a woman in control. Even if I had to practice standing tall in the mirror. When no one was watching, I spent days researching investments in real estate. I watched tutorials on contracts, property ownership, and business strategy. I attended small business meets under the name Carter, my new anonymous initials. Nobody asked about my past. They only saw a quiet, confident Black woman with cash on hand and sharp questions. But everything shifted the day I saw it. One night, while browsing real estate auctions just to learn, a listing caught my eye, a distressed apartment complex in East Houston. The pictures looked old, the description vague, but I recognized the building instantly. It was their building, Tiana and Darius's. I stared at the screen, heart thudding so hard I could hear it. The notice said the owner had defaulted on property taxes and the building would be auctioned in 2 weeks. I didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. With Mr. Langston's help, I formed an LLC, Carter Property Holdings. Anonymous, untraceable, protected. I transferred the necessary funds, learned everything I needed to know, and placed a quiet, calculated bid. 2 weeks later, the email came in. You have won the auction. Just like that. I owned the building they lived in, the building they kicked me out of, the building where Darius stood over me with his smug voice and told me I was a burden. I sat on my sofa, staring at the deed, the LLC papers spread out across the table. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from power. Real power. My voice cracked as I whispered into the quiet apartment. Look at me now, Anthony. Your girl didn't break. The next month came the formal notices, standard updates for all tenants. Nothing targeted. Nothing personal. Just business. Rent reassessments. Lease reviews. Maintenance scheduling. Everyone received the same notice. Except one unit, Darius had been enjoying an undermarket rent rate thanks to the previous owner's sloppy management. I corrected it. Not doubled. Not even close. Tripled market value plus fees they had been skirting for years. I didn't need to be there to feel the explosion inside their apartment when Darius opened that letter. I could imagine the way he puffed up the red in his face. The way he'd throw blame like darts in every direction except the mirror. 2 days later, my phone lit up with a voicemail. Tiana's voice, thin and shaky. Mom, something strange is going on with our building. The rent. It went up a lot. I don't know what's happening. I just can. We talk. I let it go to voicemail. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. I wasn't the woman begging anymore. I wasn't the mother they tossed out into the night. I was the owner of their roof, their lights, their future. And I hadn't even set foot inside the building yet. But I would. And when I did, they would look me in the eyes and finally see the woman they underestimated. Asterisk, I didn't go near the building for weeks. Not because I was afraid, but because power feels different when you learn to hold it quietly. I didn't need to hover or gloat. I wanted the truth to reveal itself naturally. And truth has a way of showing up even when you're not looking for it. I kept myself busy. New clothes, new routines, new confidence. I started taking early morning walks through downtown, breathing in the cold air that tasted like freedom. I watched the sunrise from my little balcony, realizing it had been years since I'd stopped to admire anything without feeling pressure or guilt. But one afternoon, I found myself driving past their complex without planning to. The brick exterior looked the same, but the courtyard, not so much. The grass was dying, the lights flickering. It was clear they hadn't been keeping up with anything. I didn't stop. But I slowed down through their second-floor window. I saw movement, shadows, pacing, gesturing, arguing. I knew those shapes. I knew the rhythm of Tiana's nervous pacing and the broad outline of Darius's anger. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel hurt. I felt distance. Emotional distance. The kind people feel when they finally stop bleeding. 3 days later, a property manager sent me the first tenant feedback after the rent increase. Everyone else had accepted the changes, except one. Unit to be, Darius and Tiana Holt tenant, is hostile, verbally aggressive. refuses inspection access, filed multiple baseless complaints, threatened staff. I read the report twice. I wasn't surprised. Darius thrived on control, and he was losing it fast the next week. I authorized small renovations, hallway lighting replacements, better security cameras, locked mailboxes, landscaping touch-ups. Nothing excessive. Just the improvements any responsible property owner would make, but I knew exactly how it would affect them. Every hammer, every drill, every update would remind Darius that someone else held the reins now. Someone he couldn't intimidate. Someone who wasn't afraid of him, and he had no idea it was me. The turning point came. When I saw her, I was at the grocery store reaching for a bag of oranges when a familiar voice rose from the next aisle. "Do we really need it? It's not on sale." Tiana, her voice sounded small, worn down, exhausted. I peeked around the corner just enough to see her. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. Dark circles under her eyes. Clothes wrinkled. She wasn't the confident young woman I raised. She was a shadow of herself, the kind a controlling man creates. Slowly, over time, she held a box of cereal in her hands, glanced at the price, and put it back. My heart twisted, not with revenge, but recognition. I had been her once, shrinking to keep the peace, making myself small so someone else could feel big. I stepped back before she saw me. My hand shook on the cart handle. I told myself this is what consequences look like. Not punishment, consequences, but that night when I was home alone, I couldn't get the image out of my mind. My daughter, my baby girl, picking the cheapest groceries to avoid upsetting a man who never cared about her peace. The next morning, I received another voicemail from her. "Mom, please. I know you're upset. I know I messed up. I need to hear your voice." I didn't call back. Not yet. Because this wasn't the moment she needed me most. That moment was coming fast. 3 days later, a neighbor in the building reported shouting coming from their unit. Not just normal arguing, the kind that shakes walls. Maintenance logged the complaint. Security cameras captured Darius storming out the front door, slamming it behind him. Then, the next evening, my building intercom buzzed. "Hi, this is Tiana Holt. I'm trying to reach Evelyn Carter, my mother. I think she lives here." My breath left my body. I hit the button and let her in. She knocked on my door a few minutes later, soaked from the rain, eyes full of fear and heartbreak. "Mom," I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, almost scared of the warmth. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, "I don't know what to do anymore." This wasn't revenge. This wasn't victory. This was the crack in the wall I'd been waiting for the moment. She finally saw the truth, and I wasn't going to turn her away. Not now, not ever. But she wasn't ready for the full truth yet. Not about who owned her lease. Not about the inheritance. Not about the power sitting quietly in my bag under the table. She would learn soon. And when she did, nothing in her life or mine would ever be the same again. Tiana sat on the edge of my couch like she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch anything. Her hands trembled around the cup of tea I'd given her, and every few seconds she wiped her nose on her sleeve, like a child who didn't know where to place her pain. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. Her voice was small, too small, like someone had taken scissors to it over time. I didn't push her. I didn't comfort her either. I needed her to speak without being rescued. She swallowed hard. "He thinks someone's trying to ruin us. The rent, the changes, everything. He's obsessed." She shook her head. "He keeps saying I'm hiding something from him. That I'm involved somehow." A cold shiver moved through her. "He went through my phone, my messages, my bag. He followed me to work last week." My jaw clenched. I knew this pattern. I had lived this pattern once, not with Anthony, but with my own father before he left us. Men who needed to dominate something to feel whole. But Tiana wasn't ready for my truth. "Not yet. I told him I hadn't spoken to you," she whispered. "That I didn't even know where you were." I held my breath. Then she said the words I had been waiting for, but also dreading. That was a lie. I found your address through the building notices. Her eyes lifted to mine. I came because I needed to remember what safety feels like. Safety. Something I couldn't give her when she sided with that man. Something she didn't even know she'd lost. I left him, she said suddenly, as if the words escaped on their own. My breath caught. When he tried to go through my laptop again, I told him no. He screamed at me for an hour, packed a bag and left. Said I'd regret it. She looked down at her shaking hands. I've changed the locks. I exhaled slowly, a slow, careful release of tension. I didn't know I'd been holding, but I didn't touch her. Didn't hug her. Didn't rush in. She needed reflection, not rescue. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, tears spilling freely. I just needed to see you. Needed to know you're okay. She was hurting, but she was also waking up. Finally, we talked for over an hour, mostly her speaking and me listening. When she finally left that night, she hugged me gently, like she was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't, but I also didn't cling. Not yet, because the truth. The real truth was still tucked quietly in my purse inside an old envelope with my father's name on it. That truth would come when she was strong enough to hold it. But Darius, he was unraveling too quickly. 3 days later, an envelope arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a note written angrily on lined paper. I know what you're doing. You can hide behind your company, but I'll find out who you are. You think you can play games with me? You're going to regret this. He didn't sign it. He didn't have to. I recognized the sloppy handwriting, the pressed too hard pen strokes, the paranoia between every line. I handed the note to my lawyer by the next morning. Legal letters were sent out, cease and desist, harassment documentation, tenant behavior reports. My attorney assured me he can't touch you. And if he tries, we'll bury him legally. Darius spiraled even faster. He filed fake complaints, tried to access management files, even attempted to impersonate a lawyer in an email. Every move he made only tightened the noose he'd tied around his own neck. Meanwhile, Tiana continued visiting me in small, hesitant steps. She asked questions. She apologized more softly. She started talking about therapy. She painted again, something she hadn't done since she was 16. She was becoming the woman I raised before fear molded her into someone else's shape. Then, one evening, she arrived with something pressed against her chest, a worn leather book, my mother's diary. You left this at my place last time, she said. I read it. She swallowed hard. I know who he was now. Your father. What he left for you. Why everything changed. The truth had found her, and she was finally ready for it. She sat on my couch, breath shaky. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you weren't ready. Because you had to lose everything to understand my story. Because you needed to find yourself before I handed you the truth. I didn't say those words. Instead, I said the one thing she needed most. Because now, you can finally see me. She broke down crying in my arms. For the first time in years, I held my daughter, not the woman molded by Darius, but the girl I raised. And I knew then the final chapter was coming. The truth, the confrontation, the closure. And when it came, none of us would leave unchanged. Asterisk, the email from Darius arrived on a calm Thursday morning. It's a kind of morning where sunlight spills gently across your kitchen table. Soft and warm, like the world is trying to start fresh. But one look at the subject line snapped that piece in half. We need to talk. Now, his message was a frantic wall of threats, accusations, and desperation. I know everything. The inheritance, the trust, the building. You think you can ruin my life and get away with it? If you don't fix this, I'll go public. The whole world will know what kind of family you come from. There it was, the final mask falling off. Darius Holt had no dignity left to lose. I forwarded the email to my attorney, then set my phone down as calmly as if I were placing a spoon on the table. My lawyer responded within the hour. We'll handle it. Don't respond. By the next day, Darius was served with a cease and desist, along with documentation of every fake complaint, every threatening note, every public outburst he'd made. My attorney also included security footage of him screaming in the hallway and the forged law firm email he sent to the property manager. We didn't have to take him to court. One threat of a defamation and harassment lawsuit was enough to shut him down. And Darius knew it. His presence in the building began to deteriorate like paint peeling off old wood. Neighbors reported him pacing in the courtyard at night, talking to himself. His job cut his hours back after he showed up yelling at his supervisor. And then he vanished. Tiana called me 2 days later, her voice trembling. He's gone, Mama. He left a note and a trash bag of clothes. Said he was tired of being hunted. Said you've ruined his life. I exhaled slowly. No, I said gently. He ruined it himself. Silence filled the line like a long, heavy sigh. The next weeks changed everything. Tiana found a small studio on her own. She enrolled in therapy. She joined an art class at the community center and painted with a vibrancy I hadn't seen since she was a teenager. She even painted something for me, a burst of red and gold that looked like a phoenix rising. I hung it above my fireplace. Meanwhile, the building's renovation process finished. Tenants signed their updated leases. My property manager sent me a tidy quarterly report. And Mr. Langston emailed the final documents confirming that everything, including the resolved dispute with Darius, was legally closed. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. I sold the apartment complex in late spring. The sale brought in more money than I'd ever imagined having in my hands. But I didn't celebrate with flashy purchases or champagne. Instead, I wrote a check for half of it, a donation to a women's and children's shelter, a place for women like me. Women like Tiana. Women who didn't have anywhere to go when the people who were supposed to love them turned cold. The shelter named their new wing after my mother, the Evelyn Carter House. I cried the day they confirmed it. The rest of the money? I used to buy something small and meaningful. Cozy 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood in Cedar Park. Oak trees in the front yard, a porch swing. A kitchen window that let in the Texas morning light the way I remembered from childhood. The day I moved in, Tiana helped unpack boxes. We didn't say much. But sometimes healing doesn't need words. Sometimes it's placing a photo on a shelf together. Or laughing when a plate slips from your hands. Or sitting on a porch swing and watching fireflies rise with the first hint of dusk. As she got ready to leave that night, she hugged me tight. You didn't raise me to be weak, she whispered. I just forgot. I brushed her cheek gently. You didn't forget. You just stopped looking. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she walked away with her shoulders lifted instead of slumped. After she left, I made myself tea, sat on the porch, and opened my mother's diary one last time. Then I tucked a note inside, a note Tiana would one day find. Strength is yours by birthright. Worth is yours by truth. You don't need anyone's permission to stand tall. You only need to remember who you are. I closed the diary slowly, feeling the soft hum of peace settle over me like a warm blanket. I forgave Tiana. I forgave myself, and as the crickets sang and the Texas night wrapped itself around my little house, I realized one final truth. They tried to break me, but all they did was reveal the woman I'd always been. A Black woman who rose, a mother who endured, a survivor who found her way home. Sometimes life takes turns we never expect. Every person in this story carried their own pain, their own choices, and their own consequences. Maybe you saw yourself in one of them, or maybe it reminded you of someone you once knew. What do you think happened next? What would you have done if you were in their place? If you have any questions about what happened to the other characters, or if you want me to share more about them, just comment below. I read every message you leave, and your thoughts truly mean a lot to me. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or even made you think differently, Please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep sharing stories that move people, open minds. And remind us we're all human. At the end of the day, your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for watching, for feeling, and for being part of this journey. More powerful stories are coming soon. Stay tuned and stay kind.